In this video, I'm going to share a technique and actually how to use this technique a specific way that's going to really help your guitar solos stand out. And it's really going to help you when you're writing guitar solos, but you feel like you're playing the same thing over and over. This method here, this technique, and the way I'm going to show you how to use it is really going to help give you some more ideas, kind of venture out and make your guitar solos sound unique and just more authentic. So let's dive right into this lesson. Now hang around till the end of the video because we're going to have our usual guitar chat. And real quick, for my Patreon supporters, you actually have right now the downloadable tabs and the backing track for this lesson. And if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, I appreciate that, of course. There is a link in the YouTube description of this video. Let's break down this really cool string skipping pattern that's going to enhance your guitar solos. So let me give you the layout first here. So the solo is kind of broken down into two different sections. We play around this area here, and then all we do after that is we just replicate that same pattern but an octave higher. So that makes things a little bit easier, but because you're playing it an octave higher, it sounds like something different. It just adds a different character to the solo. So each part of that solo, I'm going to split it up into two sections for each part because we're actually kind of implementing two different types of string skipping techniques, and that's what makes the solo even cooler. So you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So let's start out. I'm just going to play the first part of the solo real quick. I'll kind of slow it down and then we'll break it down note for note. So we start out on the A string 5th fret. This is the technique here. This is the first string skipping technique that we're using. A string 5th fret, we're going to skip the D string, okay? And then the next note that we're going to play is the G string 7th fret. Now the cool part about this string skipping technique is this is where you're just playing the root note, then you're playing that same note an octave higher, as you can see here. So let me play these two notes. You'll see that they're the exact same note. Now I'm chopping this up a little bit, so you may be familiar with that technique, and a lot of guitarists, this is used in countless solos, they'll play those notes together at the same time. So you hear that on a lot of guitar solos, but we're not really doing that. I want you to play it a little bit cooler way. Of course, you can implement that type of pattern in your solos at any point in time, but instead we're kind of chopping it up. Now you want to study the tabs if you're on my Patreon. I'll put the tabs on the screen for that as well here. But you know, if you don't play it exactly like I did, it's okay, as long as it sounds good to you. I just want to kind of preface that real quick. What I'm doing though is as I'm playing that pattern, we're kind of going from one place to another, kind of just sliding on up the fretboard there. What I'm doing is as I play this pattern, when I go back to that root note, I start to slide up at that point. So it's like as soon, hopefully this makes sense, as soon as I play the root note, then the octave, kind of mute that, palm mute that a little bit so it sounds cool and very 80s-ish. Then we go back to that root note. As soon as I go back to that root note, I slide up to play that next root note, which in this case, we're going from that A string 5th fret to A string 7th fret. Then we go 8th fret, 10th fret, and then finally the 12th fret. And again, as you're doing this, okay, you're keeping that higher octave in place as well. It's almost like playing a power chord. If you were to do this, okay, so just kind of play around with that, and that's why I'm kind of splitting this up into different pieces here. So That's the first part of that solo. Now, we're in part one of the solo, okay? The second half of part one. Hopefully that's not too confusing, because those kind of things confuse me sometimes too. But the second half, that was the first half of part one. Second half of part one, we're starting out with a different style of string skipping. And this is kind of going to that style that you hear in Eric Johnson's solos a lot, which I love that dude's style. It's just so cool. We're playing this right here though. Okay, so a little bit different type of string skipping. Again, instead of playing just the root note and octave like we did with the other string skipping method that we started with, we're just implementing a different type. Okay, so we're actually going to play two notes first before we skip the string and go to that third note, which again kind of gives it a different flavor. It's kind of cool here. So we're on the 12th fret, then we're going to play the 14th fret of the next string. Now, you're going to have a natural tendency to play the next note or series of notes on that G string, but that's the string that we're going to skip over, okay? We're going to skip that one and then go from the D to the B string, okay? Now, after we play those notes on the B string, right, the 12th and 13th fret, 12, 13, 12, then we go to the G string. We finally throw that in there. And the reason, real quick, the reason why I don't continue with any string skipping is because I don't necessarily want the entire solo to be string skipping, because that might get a little dull and boring. So I want to throw something else in there to spice it up, and we're just doing a cool little bend here. There's no more string skipping at this point until we start part two of the solo, which we're going to go over next. So just follow me, follow what I'm doing here. Now, we don't have the tabs for that on the screen, okay? I want you to hear what I'm playing. Of course, my Patreon members, you guys have the tabs. And again, if you'd like to join my Patreon, it's another cool way to support what I do. I really appreciate that. There is a link in the description. But try to use your ears, guys. You know, a lot of times we rely on tabs, and I look at tabs as well. But try to use your ears as much as you possibly can, okay? We've been calling out the frets here, but listen to what I'm doing here and just replicate that. Use your ears, you know, train those ears to hear what's going on and match that. All right, let's run through part one of the solo, okay? We'll just go straight through this. I'll kind of play it slow as well. Now, part two of this solo is really kind of easy, okay? I know we're playing some notes higher up here on the fretboard, but really it's easy because, again, all we're doing is replicating what we just played. You're going to play the exact same notes. We're just playing them an octave higher. So let me run through part two. And I got a little sloppy string noise at the end there. You got to watch that. I kept that in the video, you know, on purpose. You know, I want you to hear sometimes when I make mistakes. I don't like to make mistakes, but I do sometimes, you know. Let's see if I can pull that off without screwing it up. Okay, that was much better. So first things first, the strings that we're going to be playing starting out here, we're going to be playing on the D and the B string, okay? We are skipping the G string here, so you're playing these notes here. Cool little high-pitched dive bomb there. I always love the Ibanez tremolos a little bit better than the others. I don't know, they just feels cool. All right, so again, D and B string. Now we're on the 12th fret of the D string. So for the B string, we'll be on the 15th fret, and just keep that same configuration as we go through here. Okay, so just hear what I'm playing and follow the pattern here. Now, one thing real quick I want you to notice as I'm going through this particular part here, my attack is barely there at all. Now, I'm not an aggressive guitarist anyway, even though I play, you know, even some extreme melodic death metal and stuff like that. I'm not aggressive with my pick attack at all. I'm not saying you should be like me or play like me. Some players, a lot of metal players, they have a heavy hand and just a real heavy attack. I've never had that. It doesn't feel natural to me. So, you know, I want to point that out. But for this particular part, I have a really light touch. Let me go through this again. See if you can kind of notice the lighter touch that I have on this. It kind of helps clean things up a little bit as you play this, as opposed to going in with that heavy-handed attack. So I just wanted to point that out before we move on to this final piece, okay? So on that note, or notes, the pun was intended. The puns are always intended. You guys know that. Even when I say no pun intended, they're intended. All right, so this last piece, again, remember, all we're doing is replicating what we played before. So what did we play before on that last half of part one? We're just going to do the same thing an octave higher. All right, so let me break that down really slow. Remember, try to use your ears, guys. Try to use your ears on this. I'll go through the frets that I'm playing here, but just listen to what I'm playing, and then, you know, start playing those notes on your guitar until you start playing what I played. Just trust your ears, okay? Learn to use this. So this time we're on the D and the G string. We're playing the G string in this case, okay? We're on, what fret is that anyway? 19. So 19 and 21, okay? And remember, this is that other string skipping technique, okay? Where we're not playing the octave necessarily like we were in that first part there. We're gonna skip the B string, and then we're going to go to the 19th fret on the E string. You're going to play 19, 20, 19. Then you're going to go back to the B string, okay, on the, what is that, the 20th fret. And then you're going to do this. So that's 17, 20, and then bend that 20 up. So let me go through this slowly, okay? All right, let's run through that pattern, that second half there, the second part, okay? Now, let's run through the entire thing one more time, and then we've got some guitar chat. We got some things we want to talk about here, so hang around for that. Now you guys may be wondering, Jason, dude, that was a cool lesson, but where's Gunnar? He's been helping you out with these lesson videos lately. Well, I tried to get him to help out, but yeah, just not happening today, guys. So I will make Gunnar give the next lesson, okay? So he will be on the next lesson that I put out there. All right, time for a little guitar talk here, guys. I always love these chats, and I'll make this kind of quick here. When I think of string skipping, I think of one guitarist that really, really stands out among every guitarist. And I know each guitar player that's famous, like Satriani, Kirk Hammett, Petrucci, all the greats, Malmsteen, they all have their unique styles, but there's one guitar player that just has like an over-the-top unique style. Like, no one sounds like him. He has truly got his own. It's like, okay, well, that's Eric Johnson. I know that's not a metal guitarist, but man, he has a lot of string skipping in his solos, and I think that's what makes his signature sound, and it's kind of what sets him apart. Yeah, the other guitar players use this method as well, but the way he implements it, and of course Eric Johnson's tone, which again, I know he's not a metal guitar player, and most of you watching are metal guitar players, but of course, you know, I think most of you are like me, we appreciate other styles as well, but I have always been fascinated by Eric Johnson's playing. So Eric, if you happen to watch this video, I know you probably won't, dude, but hey, I love your stuff, man, always have. But anyway, in this video, you know, I showed you 2 different ways to use it. Now, of course, you hear a lot of guitar solos that have that root note and octave and just kind of moving that along the fretboard there. That gives you that real cool, hey, there's 2 guitars playing at the same time sound there. And again, it's something cool to throw into your solos, but that wasn't part of this particular solo because I wanted to show you a different way to use it. And that was by using that method, root note, octave, but then chopping it up a little bit. It's a solo, right? But it's almost like a rhythm. It's almost like playing a metal or rock rhythm, how you can kind of like navigate throughout the fretboard, chopping it up, you know, going back and forth between those 2 notes, the root and the octave. So that was the first method we went over. Then we moved to what I consider that Eric Johnson style of string skipping. And I know other guitar players use this, guys, but he pops in my head whenever I think of this particular string skipping method, to where you might play 2 notes before skipping that string going to that next note. Maybe you play 3 notes and then skip a string, you know. There's different ways you can approach that, but I wanted to share that particular method with you because that's something that you can play around with. You know, take what I shared with you in this video, but make it your own. Start playing around with these techniques, these methods of string skipping, but play around with different notes, with different frets, you know, just come up with some different patterns. This is one thing I always want you guys to remember. Whenever I give you lessons like this, whether it's rhythms or leads or technique or whatever, yeah, I want you guys to learn what I'm sharing with you, but I don't care so much that you learn it note for note. In other words, if you don't play it just perfectly, that's okay. Maybe your fingers or your mind or whatever, maybe it wants to take you somewhere else as you're playing what I'm sharing with you, okay? Allow that to happen, because I would much rather you take what I'm sharing with you, maybe change it a little bit. It's like, hey, I just wrote a really cool guitar solo based off of Jason's lesson. I'd rather you do that than just learning everything that I share with you note for note. I'm not saying don't learn it note for note, you know, try, let that be the goal, but if it takes you in a different direction naturally, allow that to happen. That's okay, because that's really how you start to develop your signature style and sound. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what we are as guitar players and musicians. You know, we're not really supposed to go after, you know, James Hetfield or Dave Mustaine or Kirk Hammett, Marty Friedman, all these greats, right? Joe Satriani. We really shouldn't be trying to mimic what they're doing. We should allow their influence, right? And the influence of several guitar players. We should allow that to help us create our own style and sound. So you may be learning a Satriani song, for example, or you may be learning a really cool Amon Amarth rhythm or something like that, or some cool rhythm from Nightwish or whatever, right? You may start to learn that. It's like, you know what if I go here instead? What if I do this instead? That's okay, because then you start to really branch out and you get more into the riff writing and the songwriting process, and that's another talent altogether. And I want you guys to have that. I want you guys to develop that, okay? So if you don't learn what I'm sharing with you note for note, that's okay. Allow it to take you on that journey that's yours, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, again, I want to remind you that my Patreon supporters, you guys have the tabs and you got a really cool minute-long or so backing track to play this lead along with. I included the track for the lead part 2. I play that twice, so that track's there. This is a short one. but then you've got the backing track with just the rhythm guitars and the bass and the drums to play along with. Again, if you want to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this video. I have just one very simple tier level. I'll probably always keep it that way because, you know, I'm like Leonard Skinner. I'm a simple man. Also, don't forget I've got guitar courses available too. A lot of you are in those courses. For beginners, there's Metal Guitar Apprentice. If you're at more of an intermediate and above, there's Metal Riff Master, and that really will kind of take your skills to that next level. A lot of you are in those courses, and thank you for the support. But links to all of these things, they are in the description of this video, so please check those out. And guys, if you have any questions about the lesson or string skipping or lead guitar playing, coming up with solos, please leave those in the comments. Or if you have anything you want to share with others, because I know other folks go through the comments as well. There's always you guys leave such good comments, by the way. There's always a lot of good information. I actually learn a lot from you guys in the comments, so I really do appreciate those. On that note, please give this a thumbs up. YouTube likes when you do that, and of course I appreciate it as well. And hey, if you want to share this on your social media or share it with someone, feel free to do that. Make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching my videos. I do appreciate you, and until the next time, you know what to do. Keep it metal.